Hey guys, it's Steph here. It's early in the morning. My cutting garden is behind me. It's so wonderful. I'm so excited because I bought a lot of fun perennials that I'm going to be planting today. So I have some different goals with my cutting garden this year. I'm trying to put in perennials just to make it a little bit more low maintenance. And also we got like 20 chickens today. 6 of them are meat chickens. If you guys have ever seen a meat chicken, their feet are huge and they're so aggressive. They're so hungry and they are just starting to chomp down so many of my annuals that I grew in the greenhouse. So I wanted to convert my cutting garden into a perennial cutting garden last year. I've slowly been doing it. There are a few annuals that I'll always grow, like dahlias and zinnias and cosmos. They love my climate and they're just so easy to grow. But as far as the rest of them go, I'm going to be putting in a ton of beautiful perennials. This is just so much easier for me. I don't have to grow seeds in the greenhouse as much. I don't have to harden them off. I don't have to baby these little tender seedlings that are going through a little bit of transplant shock that need a lot of watering. So at this point, I just want something that I have to maintain and weed. So I've discovered some really awesome perennials that are great for cutting. I'll get blooms from early spring all the way until late summer. I'm so excited about these different varieties. I'm sure a lot of them you have never heard of, or maybe you guys are really experts with perennial cutting flowers, but I think these are some unique varieties that are going to be really fun to add to your cutting garden. And so I have, I think, 5 different varieties that I'm going to plant today. There's one that's really drought tolerant, loves the sun, that I'm so excited about, and it's called Status. And the difference between this one is it's a more hardy perennial. It doesn't really behave like a biennial, so it's a little bit different than your typical Status, and it dries so well, and it's really great for cutting. And it's a little bit shorter, so it's great for the front of this cutting garden where I've just got to fill in a little bit of space. I'm cramming in as many flowers as I possibly can. So if you've never seen my cutting garden, here are my arbors. I've got some clematis jasmine, a perennial vine that's going to get nice and big. It's going to take a bit for it to mature and overtake these arbors, but once it does that, it's just going to grow vigorous. So here it is. I have 3 of them starting to grow a little bit, but it's doing really well. And so that is my perennial vine. It's not really for cutting, it's mostly for looks at this point. And then right back there, I'm creating a seeding area. I haven't even touched that area until this year. It was full of weeds. It looks so much better, believe it or not, than it did. But that is gonna be such a nice spot for me to hang out, because on top of all of these being nice cutting flowers, it's also gonna be a great pollinator garden. It's gonna really bring in a lot of your bees and your butterflies, hummingbirds. There's some perennials in here that really attract the hummingbirds. I just want to talk about this area. This is the very back of my cutting garden. Going from there to here is very different when it comes to the soil and the moisture. Look how wet it is right here. We have a little underground spring, and since we've got so much moisture last year, it is just coming from the bottom, and there's even fabric right here, so it's really wet. And this area is a lot more dense and heavy and doesn't get as much sunlight. It starts to get shaded at about 1:30 in the afternoon. So I needed a plant here that, first of all, was wet tolerant, was a little bit more shade tolerant, and can handle the dense, heavy clay. So I found, this is the first one that's kind of unique, Filipendula ruba, but it's also known as Queen of the Prairie. It gets about 5 feet tall, but look at that beautiful flower. It's gonna be a nice filler for my bouquets. And it definitely likes the wet soil. It does not want to dry out. And see right there, 60 to 72 inches in height. It's really nice and bushy, and it blooms in summer, and it blooms for a long time. So make sure you keep that soil evenly moist. Look at the leaves on those. They're pretty cool. Even when the blooms start to fade, the seed heads will stay on there, and they provide a lot of interest. I'm actually going to divide. This is one of those that you can divide really well if you watched my video recently. So I'm going to cut this into 2. You can see there's separate plants on each end right there. Pretty obvious. So saves me a little bit of money, and I'm excited to have this in the cutting garden. I had a little bit of problems last year with this area because I put a plant in here that didn't love the moisture and it needed a little bit more sunlight. So these are going to be perfect. And make sure you give them some space. They do get 3 to 4 feet wide. Okay, the next perennials I'm going to be planting are look at this one. This is the Helianthus Sunshine Daydream. Look how beautiful that flower is. This also gets really tall, up to 5 to 6 feet tall and wide. It blooms from early summer to autumn, so it's going to give you some later color in the season, and you want to space them about 24 inches apart. So I'm going to pair these with my other perennial, this verbena. So I divided a bunch of these plants. They're going to be great companion plants, look beautiful together, but my goal is to stuff as many different varieties as I can in this cutting garden so I can have a lot of different variety of bouquets and colors. So So this will also get up to 6 feet tall. So I'm kind of on the border. They're only hardy down to zone 6. They are kind of wiry, the stems. They don't take up a lot of space. So that's why they're a good filler in between this helianthus. That verbena, I'm so excited to put it in here because it blooms forever. I swear it blooms from early summer all the way until fall, just nonstop. They just hold their color really, really long and they'll just keep coming. Next, I'm gonna be planting some Augustaceae. So I've been wanting to pair these two plants together for a couple years now. They're such great companion plants. But this is the Augustaceae blue boa. This is a highly sought after Augustaceae. It's from the mint family. It's hardy down to zone 5 and it gets pretty tall, 32 inches tall, and you want to space them about 24 inches apart, but blooms midsummer to autumn. So my goal was to have most of my blooms come from summer to fall. I just want a really nice dramatic show of flowers in this cutting garden, but it is really long blooming. It smells good. It's a great pollinator flower. The bees love it. It's a little bit more drought tolerant. It can dry in between waterings, so it loves my zone 6B climate that's super hot and dry in the summer. It's just a more low maintenance plant. Cannot go wrong with this flower. Look at this bee balm. This is your classic cottage flower, great for cutting. This is a proven winner. So this is the upscale red velvet. I don't have a lot of red in here, so that red with that blue is just going to be a beautiful contrast. And this is one of your taller varieties, so I wanted some tall plants in here, especially if I want to make a tall, big bouquet and go a little bit crazy. But it gets up to 32 inches tall, so it's the same height as this Augustaceae. And it's hardy down to zone 4, so it's fairly cold hardy. And you want to space it about 36 inches apart. But these will kind of grow and spread pretty vigorously. So I think a cutting garden is a good spot for that. It can contain it a little bit. But I like the darker foliage on this. It provides a little bit of contrast. And the bees, like I said, this is a great pollinator plant. Bee balm does like to have moist soil, but it's going to be okay if it dries out just a little bit. But it will rebloom, deadhead, and you'll get a second flush, which is awesome. Both of these are really long blooming. Okay, I'm going to walk over and show you the one I'm most excited about. This is going to go at the very front of my cutting garden. I wanted to buy all 30 of them when I was at the nursery, so I'm going to go back and buy more probably at the end of the season if they still have them in stock, so I can really fill up this front area. I just want a huge mass of them. I have 5 of them here, so you can see I want to fill up this whole front area. I thought about putting aster right here, but then I found this one and I liked it a lot more. So I only have 5, but with time I can lift and divide. So it's going to be a process with a lot of these flowers. I'm trying to save a lot of money. And so I will slowly fill up all of these spaces because all these plants are going to naturalize. You're going to be able to divide them. This one, it might take a little bit longer, so I'm going to buy a few more. But this front area is really dry. I don't have a drip system in here yet. I'm going to have to hand water a little bit, and then it gets that full sun all day long. And the soil hasn't been amended very much, so not a lot of compost. It's a little bit heavy. It's hard. It's a lot of clay. I mean, it could be worse. I'm not going to complain because there's a lot of clay out there that's far worse than mine. This is one of those plants that can handle this situation. This is the Dazzle Rocks status, and it has these cute, I don't know how I would describe it. Airy lavender blue flowers add lasting color to hot, dry situations, a dwarf form of status. They bloom summer to autumn. They love the sun. They can take the heat. They're kind of like your succulents or sedum. They're really tough like that. Space them about 18 inches apart. And then they get about 14 to 16 inches tall, so not very tall. So you see this area behind me, you can get creative. So I do have plans to remodel this at some point in my lifetime. I don't know when that's gonna happen. I wanna paint it like a sagey green, add some trim around that garage door with like a little pergola arbor thing, put a climbing rose on there. But along here, I'm gonna plant some tall lilies, do a ton of them. They don't take up a lot of space, not a lot of width, so I'll still have a nice walking path right there. And they get up to 6 to 8 feet tall. It's gonna be perfect because this area gets afternoon shade at around 1:30, so they'll have protection from the intense heat in the afternoon. Thought about putting hollyhocks. I just kind of have a love-hate relationship with hollyhocks, and hollyhocks are not good for cutting. So lilies are gonna smell good and they're really great for cutting. All right, that is what I'm planting this year. I do have some anemone that I'm gonna be putting along the wall in my greenhouse, which is another shade-loving cutting flower. It comes out late summer to fall, one of those later blooms. So that would be a great one to put in your cutting garden. And then I also have so many perennials perennials in my flower beds that are great for cutting too, like my liatris, the cone flower. Those are some other options. But I do have a big vegetable garden. I do have a few garden boxes that I'm always going to grow some cold hardy annuals, because during winter time I don't have a lot going on, and then I might designate 1 or 2 of those boxes for some annuals if I feel like I want to try some new varieties. But it's just easier in those little boxes to maintain them, and so I will always have a few boxes to experiment with some new annuals. Gotta have that. That's just my creative side. But anyways, I hope you guys like this video. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you hit the like button if you like this video and the notification bell so you are notified of all of my future videos and all of these updates. You don't want to miss out, because it's going to be really fun to see how much this progresses and fills in over the next year or 2, or even this year. So anyways, I appreciate the support, and I hope to see you in my next video. I'll talk to you later. Bye.